You arrive at camp. It's lunchtime and you're invited to sit with the final girls of bunk 237. When you notice a 33-year-old scaredy-cat in the corner. Who is he? Why is he there? If you find yourselves asking these questions, then you just might be in a Shanepisode.
Hello everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Bunk 237. I am Robin.
And I'm Tuyet. And today's guest is super special. He's on every single episode, but you may not hear his voice. It is our very great and very hardworking producer, Shane Segreti.
Yay!
Hey everybody. Was that good?
That was so shy.
That was really shy. I guess that's why you're
so shy.
Yeah. You can use,
in
you can
addition
project your
to
voice.
being our wonderful producer, Shane is Tuyet's very good friend and my husband. And as horror movie fans, both of us are fascinated by Shane because he does not like horror movies. Would you say that's accurate?
They're not my go-to. Yeah, no, fuck, I hate them. All right, fine.
Yeah,
let's not beat around the bush here.
Yeah, this is why we've brought you here. And I would say that Robin's description is accurate, that we are fascinated, absolutely just enthralled by the idea that you don't watch horror movies, but
not only that he doesn't watch horror movies, but that he reads the Wikipedia pages for them. He somehow knows a lot about movies that I haven't seen or even heard of. It's just mind-boggling to me.
It's an incredible facade of someone in casual conversation that can talk about horror movies and produce a horror movie podcast, but who doesn't watch them, doesn't want to watch them, and I think also kind of can't watch them entirely.
Yeah,
but just loves reading them.
I think what you're describing is a superpower that I have.
Okay.
That you know, if there are, it's probably not the right time to get into this profession, but if there's any law enforcement that needs anyone to go deep undercover, I can do the research. I can blend in
As a horror movie fan.
as a horror movie fan.
Yeah, you really tricked me on that one. Well, I'm very interested in making you vocalize exactly what kind of movies you think you can and can't watch, because I have known Shane. We've been in a relationship for 7 years at this point, married for a year, and I still don't have a handle sometimes on the movies that you can and can't handle when it comes to horror, because you're a huge monster movie fan. You can watch some zombie movies and things like that with no problem, and then there are some movies that you're like, no way, never would I watch this. And I'm like, well, how is it different from any? So in your own words, I would like you to try and articulate what movies in the horror genre you can and can't watch.
Sure. I will say really, really quick, though, this was also the inception of this podcast. Tuyet had reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do a horror movie podcast, and I said, no, thank you. And then I said,
I want to note
Robin might be able to.
Yeah, I would like to note that, like, I've been friends with Shane for a very long time, almost a decade, probably. You know, we casually met in Denver, but then became friends at we were both working at the Palm Springs Film Festival. And in all of that time, up until about 6 months ago, I did not know that Shane didn't like horror movies. I assumed that he did, again, because he's so good at faking it. I just assumed, based on our other mutual interest in, like, I don't know, monsters and explosions and shit, like that. I was like, oh, Shane will be a great person to watch horror movies with, because it was beginning of quarantine and I was watching so many horror movies. And when I asked him if he did and wanted to do a podcast about it, I was so surprised, so shocked when he was like, nope, our trailer, which you can listen to on the internet, is based on a true story.
Yeah, that really happened.
Word for word, what happened.
Yeah, all those people died.
And then when he mentioned that his wife Robin would be interested in doing that she watches a lot of horror movies, that was really definitely the beginning of this.
And I was very honored to be the second choice pick for Tuyet's horror movie podcast idea.
I guess to describe the movies that I think I can watch, monster movies, by and large, I can watch and like to watch monster movies. I grew up watching a lot of the Godzilla films. Growing up in Hawaii, they would be on the TV all the time. From there, kind of graduated, I guess, into like the Universal monster films, the old Universal monster films. I do like those really a lot. Creature from the Black Lagoon, the original Frankenstein.
Which I would say count as horror. There are,
right, right.
Those are horror movies.
I think there's a bleed over of monster movies and horror movies. The other night we were watching Super 8 and you were like, how could you watch this? This is actually really terrifying.
That movie is, it's about kids and whatever, but it's got a real cool, scary monster. It's super gory.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot about it that is like different from many horror movies.
Yeah. What is it like? Say if you're watching a trailer for something, Shane, how do you know, what is it? Is it the level of blood? Is it the level of death? Is it ghosts?
I'm totally fine with gore. Like I say that, but then hold on. I'm now like thinking there's a particular type of gore, and the sillier it is, I think it's the more I can handle it. If you guys watched, if I can do a quick plug for the latest Michael Bay film, it is an opening sequence where people get literally run over with cars in the most goriest fashion, and it is amazing.
And that's okay.
So gore,
with you.
Yeah, that's fine. Gore's fine. That was that Ryan Reynolds one.
Detective Pikachu?
Yeah, it was Detective Pikachu. It was gory as hell.
But okay, so
it's not gore. I'm fine with.
So what? Yeah, what
gore.
is it then? Are psychological thrillers? Is it serial killers?
Well, there's even some psychological thrillers that I really like.
Yeah. See, guys, like, it doesn't make any
I know,
sense.
it really doesn't.
Try getting married to this person and understanding, because I try to understand so hard.
I don't really know what it is. Like, I like Seven, but I don't like Identity.
Okay.
And those are two very similar, tonally psychological horrors.
I have sort of pinpointed something that I don't know if you're aware of, and it has to do with the presence of either law enforcement or like guns and action, because you are completely fine with any violence, gun violence, like people getting shot and blood spraying
in movies.
And whatever.
Hold on. In movies,
yes,
not in the real world. In movies,
and monsters getting shot. You watch all the like alien movies and stuff like that. But like, for example, we watched the first episode of Lovecraft Country, and there were monsters in that showed up at the very end, and it was like a very straight, like, monsters going after, people stuck in a cabin kind of horror thing. And you seemed okay with it at the time, but then you were like, I think that's enough for me.
Well, it was more like that side of Lovecraftian horror I like and I'm fine with. But the supernatural side, I don't like spirits. I don't like ghost movies, although I have watched a few. I don't.
This is the whole thing with Shane.
Ghost. I don't.
I think it's very true that you don't like.
But I don't
like ghost movies or like
ghost
spirits
movies,
or demon kind of movies.
Ghost movies are like very this could happen serial killer movies. I don't like.
Okay. So if it's the kind of horror that lives in a more fantastical world that you can kind of play around in, you can kind of like let your imagination go in a more playful way with it.
Yeah, if there's like a hero's journey that I can kind of follow, like if that makes sense. Like no one's really going on a quest necessarily. It's kind of you're trapped in this thing that you have to escape.
I think that is a quest. That's an adventure for your life.
There is a difference, though, between like adventure movies and movies where
you're just trying to survive.
It's all reactive,
Yeah. And then like the horror comedy stuff I really like.
Right.
Because I weirdly had an opportunity to grow up on Tales from the Crypt. And there are some episodes of Tales from the Crypt that I should not have seen. But like I'm fine with because it's very silly and I don't have to take it serious. I think what happens a lot is I get trapped in my mind of like, oh, yep, this is the thing that could happen to me.
which is the reason that you can't watch them. Also, you've mentioned this before, is because you get sleep paralysis.
Oh, yeah. It often triggers an episode of sleep paralysis for me. And it's just because of the stress of my mind spiraling into a hole of this could happen. But then, like, it doesn't even have to be horror films. Like, we watch I Will Follow You, or I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Right.
The documentary. And then, like, I'll be taking out the trash, and in my mind, I'll be like, oh, a serial killer could just, like, come up and, like, kill me and then go kill Robin and our dog. And then I will fall asleep just imagining what will happen. And that often triggers, that mental state will trigger an episode of sleep paralysis.
Do you remember the first time that happened? Or was there a point when you were like, where you realized you can't watch scary movies?
I remember the first time I had a sleep paralysis episode. I was like 8.
The interesting thing about your sleep paralysis is that I also sometimes have sleep paralysis, or I have had episodes in my life. When I was really young, I also used to sleepwalk. Somehow in my brain, processing that stuff I don't know if it's necessarily affected, because I do get like scares from scary movies, but there's still something inside of me that like I still want to see them. And there's something, I mean, and probably with you too, Robin, like it's like so enjoyable to watch horror movies for me.
It's so enjoyable to watch horror movies and to experience the fear. I will say that like what you described, Shane, like if I take the dog out after watching a scary movie and I'm in the dark, I'll get spooked. But it doesn't, I'll run up the stairs and then and then come inside, and then it doesn't really follow me further than that. I very, very occasionally will have like a dream that's scary and inspired, by whatever horror movie I watch. But I don't know if it's just that like I have a terrible memory. I just don't remember what I've done hours before, or if I'm just somehow like more able to separate it from my real life, because I don't have trouble sleeping. I get scared in the moment, and I'll be scared right after, but it doesn't affect me like throughout the night pretty much ever.
Yeah.
I would also say you were introduced to horror films, I think, in a very different way than I was, where I think your dad kind of was just like, oh, you should check out these things, and kind of watched them with you. So you had a little bit of training.
Yeah, but I was also one of those middle school kids who read a lot about serial killers and got into like horror novels. Like I would read Stephen King before bed and stuff, and like it just never really affected me at any point.
Yeah, not in a way where I would ever want to not watch it.
Right.
Similarly, like I read Goosebumps and Fear Street and all those things when I was younger, and just like, and kind of
Fear Street,
right? But what is that attraction to that adrenaline rush of fear, though? Is that it? Is it just like,
well, that's what I was going to ask, because
fear?
like for me, there are a million other ways you can get that rush that you don't have to spook yourself to do it, or spook yourself with a horror movie. You can like spook yourself with heights or a roller coaster, but there are other ways that I think are a little bit more enjoyable to get that adrenaline rush.
I think enjoyable is a subjective term, because I don't get as much joy out of like the fear of being high up or something as I do from a horror movie, and that might be just because of the fact that I grew up loving like to read and like storytelling as a form kind of thing, that like I'm really into the creative ways that people find to spook me,
Oh, absolutely. I'm agree with that 1,000%.
But I also very recently, in fact, have discovered that it thrills me and comforts me almost to watch a horror movie where I know that whatever's happening in the movie is worse than what's happening to me in real life.
Also 100% on board with that. Again, at the beginning of quarantine, I was so honestly very depressed. It was a really tough time for everybody. And I found a lot of comfort in watching horror movies. And I think like, those first few months when I was like just home alone and didn't really want to talk to that many people, wasn't really reaching out to that many people, I found a great comfort in watching like the worst monster things, the worst psychological things, because there was something where it felt better to sort of escape into this fake world that was worse, or even more extreme than what was going on. And it was a strange medicine in a way,
Totally.
Well, like, I get that, but like for me, I also do that, but the other end of the spectrum, where like I find comfort in watching a woman go back home to Alabama to confront her ex-husband to just sign divorce papers so that way she can marry this rich socialite from New York, but then find out that she's still in love with her ex-husband.
Sweet Home Alabama is on TV. He puts it on, and we watch the whole thing.
Not every time.
I would say I've seen that movie 3 times in the last 3 months.
That's too many times.
It's always on TV. It's always on.
I do, but what I was trying to say is I revisit. I do that, and I just find comfort in the things that are like joyful or funny or heroic in some way.
Yeah, I do too. I think I just don't get the same release from it, I guess.
I wonder
stories like that.
If part of the horror movie thing, why it's so comforting, is because so many horror movies, well, not so many, but I think that there are a lot of horror movies that have a conclusion or have like an end. The serial killer gets caught, the curse gets released, like there's the zombie survivors.
Our real life horror
it's just moment, endless.
There's no end.
Right? And like, I think maybe is it that we like watching like this big bad thing happening, but we like to see that thing get destroyed or crushed or whatever. And
I think that's totally
something in there.
True, and it's almost like the same experience as watching like a pimple popping video or
I don't watch
an
those
earwax removal.
But I get the sentiment.
Where it really is like this suspense that you like build up this adrenaline from watching horror movies and being scared, and then the release of the ending is like so satisfying.
Yeah, just when you get to the final girl, or when you get, whatever that last 10 minutes of the movie is, it feels so good. And I think like that's like, for me, like that's my hero's journey, is like escaping a supernatural serial killer.
Yeah. And Shane, I'm curious, because even though you don't get that satisfaction from horror movies, you do watch a lot of like recap videos of horror movie endings and read a lot of Wikipedia pages about the plots of horror movies, and that is so crazy to me.
Well, I want to, again, I want to blend in. Like,
but
we're outing
really.
me now, but for years I was able to just coast.
But does that not give you the same? Is it because it's
sometimes.
Just like a
Yes,
nugget size?
sometimes it does.
Okay.
You're kind of seeking that
not so much seeking that. I think to your point, Tuyet, I do really like comeuppance. I like the comeuppance in films. I like when justice is served. And for a horror movie, I'll watch the endings, or like explaining the endings of films, because then in 6 minutes I can just get that out of the way and I can be like, boom, all right, sweet. I don't have to like sit through an hour and a half.
But you don't. It's not.
And I'm just like, all right, justice
you haven't
was
spent
served.
the last hour and a half
Doesn't
feeling
matter.
anything or being guilty.
Doesn't matter, because I'll often pair it with then reading the Wikipedia. So be like, oh, I get it. Okay, yeah.
Wait, do you watch the ending videos before you read the Wikipedias and then go back?
No, I'll read the Wikipedias and then or the summaries, and then I'll be like, I kind of don't. I get it, but I would like to understand it a little bit more.
And why do you want to understand it?
Well, because I'm intrigued by them. I think the general like zeitgeist or lexicon around horror films, I'm like, I'm intrigued enough, but I don't want to waste an hour and a half.
But you
hours.
spend the time reading the Wikipedia and watching
like
the
10
videos.
Minutes.
Like you could just
Those
watch
videos are
the
like
movie.
5 minutes.
No, but for you, it's not that you don't want to waste the time. It's that experience wouldn't be enjoyable for you, right?
I don't want to do it. I'd rather just watch Jurassic Park again for like the 100th time.
You do another thing about Shane that I appreciate, but to some extent can't handle, is how readily you rewatch movies. You rewatch movies that bring you comfort and whatever. And they're not always like Sweet Home Alabama. You know, it's a lot of Marvel movies and monster movies and Jurassic Park and stuff. You rewatch them so many times.
Yeah. Well, we've talked. I feel like I'm often a creature of habit. I'll eat the same thing from a restaurant every time we order from there, and just like I know what I like. I like what I like, and
yeah,
you can't change me. So go fuck yourself.
I had a question, which is what's the scariest movie that you've seen that you've actually enjoyed?
Ooh, that's a good one. I really did like Drag Me to Hell. I was dragged to Drag Me to Hell because I had dragged my friend, who was on our podcast, Jonah Baez, to see the Biggie Smalls biopic when he wanted to watch My Bloody Valentine 3D. So So I felt like I owed him something.
Do you think Drag Me to Hell qualifies as a comedy, a horror comedy?
No, I think it's more horror than comedy. There's comedic elements in it, but it's a very, like, I feel like a very standard, like, demon possession hell movie. Another one would be probably Cabin to the Woods, too. I think Cabin to the Woods, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Cabin in the Woods is, I think that's a comedy, a horror comedy.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do the horror elements, like they play those for straight.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the comedy in it comes from like the irony of the situation that the characters are in.
Right.
The fact that they're kind of making fun of the framing of it is where the humor comes into it. But
what's interesting about that is that not to really enjoy Cabin in the Woods, but to, I think, appreciate it in a sense, you have to be a horror movie fan.
Or just know...
just a movie fan.
Or just know that, like...
Or just have read the Wikipedia pages of all horror movies in existence.
Yeah, I mean,
so
duh.
I have a follow-up question, is what is the scariest movie that you've seen that you can't watch again, that you did not enjoy?
Probably 13 Ghosts. Because 13 Ghosts is a whole movie about pop-up scares. That's entirely the like gimmick of the movie, is they can't see these ghosts unless they wear these glasses, and there's a lot of like POVs of the characters where they're like, I don't know what's happening, and then they put on the glasses and there's like a ghost attacking them right there, and it's just it's like relentless. It's just constantly that. And
you don't enjoy pop-up scares?
No, I like Reese Witherspoon when she's
we get it, Shane.
When she's trying to catch lightning to make glass, or she's in Tiffany's and she has to pick out a ring.
So my other question is, you say that you like to read these plot summaries and watch these recap videos to sort of be a part of the conversation because you're interested, but have you considered just not being in the conversation?
Have you considered being quiet?
Well, fair.
Just kidding, I love you.
I respect the genre. I think it's, as our friend Andy So has also pointed out, horror was kind of an inception and a gateway into comedy. So I understand there's a parallel between the thing that I really love, which is comedy and action, and then horror film. The one that I think I went even like 2 or 3 steps further than my normal just wanting to know this film, was Midsommar and Hereditary. Just because there was so much conversation about those 2 films that and I know Robin really enjoyed Midsommar, that I kind of just wanted to know what it was about. So I would read the Wikipedia pages, I watched videos explaining the ends, and then I just like looked up photos from each film.
But you haven't seen either of them?
I have not seen either.
No.
Have you?
I mean, he practically has at this point.
Have you
just through film stills and recap videos? And
it's not a problem with the visualization of it because you can look at the stills.
Yes.
Somehow,
it's not like you get queasy.
Well, because it's like it's out of context. Yeah. Like it's not moving. I think my brain can separate. That this is not real.
But so in the instance of Hereditary and Midsommar, you've read the Wikipedias, yes?
Yes.
You've looked at the film stills. You've watched videos. You've talked to your wife, Robin, about it, who loves both those movies.
It's actually really frustrating when I come home from the movie and I'm like, let me tell you all about it. And he's just like, I know.
But like you still don't feel like you, even though you know almost everything about that movie, you still don't think that you could just sit down and just watch it from beginning to end?
No. Because I can almost guarantee it's so much worse. You know what I mean? Like, watching it and watching, especially like in Hereditary, how creepy, like, was it Toni Collette?
Yeah.
Is, and then like the burning, floating body. That's a still I saw, right? There's like a floating witch. And
Yes.
she's, like,
Yes.
burning. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Floating, yeah.
Yeah, but
Floating
seeing
body,
that
yeah.
actually happen, I think, would be too much.
What's incredible to me too is that you're sort of ingesting this information, but you're not building any kind of tolerance to the movie.
No,
Right.
because it's few and far apart. Because what I'll do is I'll go through this process of learning a horror film, and then I feel like I need to cleanse myself, so I'll watch like XXX, Return of Xander Cage, like 8 times.
Okay, this is interesting to me, this revelation about the stills versus the movie, because we just had a conversation the other day where I learned, where you said that if you were being honest with yourself, you hate Halloween and everything about Halloween and all the imagery and all the whole aura about Halloween. But Halloween is so much about just the imagery. Like, so what do you hate about Halloween? How is that different from being able to look at horror movie stills?
I would like to describe my face and my mouth fucking agape at the fact that Shane hates Halloween.
Tuyet, it was a shock to me too.
What the fuck?
It's one of my favorite holidays. It is absolutely my favorite time of year.
There's actually there's a very clear
Let's talk about it.
There's a very clear reason that I don't like Halloween. It's the exact same reason why I don't necessarily like St. Patrick's Day. I feel like Halloween is a holiday that people take as an opportunity and an excuse to be an asshole and to like scare you.
If you're like a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, well, maybe I am. It feels like it, like the people who love Halloween, I feel like also scaring people, and that's like you're being a dick.
No, see, this is also something that we talked about the other day. Was just because I love watching horror movies and love being scared and scaring myself does not mean that I have any desire to scare another person. I do not want to be responsible for that experience, especially if someone's not gonna enjoy it. That does nothing for me.
Right, but you're an angel. So but the culture around Halloween is that we as a society, it's like our one opportunity to be scared or to scare people. And I think by and large people abuse that privilege, and they can all go fuck themselves.
Were you hurt?
What happened to you?
Because you have a bad experience.
I'm thinking about like the store stalkers at Joann Fabrics putting up the little like decorative like.
Yeah, and I'm just like standing outside, just giving them the finger, just like.
It's about the harvest. It's about coming together.
Yeah, it's about celebrating the dead,
witchcraft,
which is like celebrating our ancestry and our history and the lives and deaths of people that have come before us, and really honoring that. And it's about witches and shit.
And it's also about like haunted hayrides and haunted houses, and like who's really doing background checks on these fucking people who we're letting them torture us.
As I love Halloween. I love the imagery. I love the movies, the scary movies. I do not want to go to a haunted house. I do not want to go on a haunted hayride, and I do not want to go trick or treating. I don't want to dress up in a costume.
I don't think you should go trick or treating at this age.
That doesn't mean that I don't like Halloween.
Speaking of trick or treating, I did like Trick or Treat, which was a horror
movie?
film. Yeah.
And you liked it.
I liked some of it because it's an anthology. There were like one or two that I could do without.
I wish.
But then there were a couple that were really funny.
Trying to sort of come up with this like Venn diagram of like
believe me, I've been trying to do the same thing for 7 years.
It's impossible.
Because then out of nowhere it's like, oh, trick or treat.
Your barometer is like a cloud. it's like a misshapen cloud.
It's more. I think it's more like
ever changing, and
it's one of those barometers
looks like a duck.
The mercury thing on the bottom is broken.
Yeah, it's also like if you just grabbed like a fistful of darts and threw them all at the same time
and dropped a bunch of them on the ground.
And most of them didn't hit the board.
Yeah.
A lot of them were on the ground. One of them hit the bartender.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my movie watching experience.
And if you did
it's
that
never
every single
consistent.
day.
Yeah, it's never consistent. Every day I'm at the bar just throwing a fistful of darts.
Because, okay, talking about the movies that we've covered this season, you watched Train to Busan with me, no problem. You sat through the whole thing. You enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah, oh no, I did. Yeah, I'd like...
You weren't scared by it?
Yeah, there's oh boy. Zombie films. There's sometimes where I can really kind of put zombie films into that kind of Wolfman monster category. But then there's some zombie films where I can't. Like 28 Days Later, I couldn't do.
That's one of my questions. Because how is Train to Busan Zombies different from 28 Days Later Zombies?
That is a very good question, and I would also like to know the answer to that.
There's like the whole rage side to 28 Days Later that's terrifying.
I would say that there's a rage side to the Train to Busan Zombies as well.
Yeah.
They were much more in line with the 28 Days Later Zombies than they were with the George Romero Zombies.
Yes.
Could you watch like World War Z?
I did watch World War Z. Why did I watch World War Z? Probably because it was on TV. But then even World War Z is a little cartoonish.
What about The Walking Dead?
The Walking Dead, I did watch a lot of The Walking Dead because I think at the time I was reading the comic books. Look, still Image.
But like,
still
I feel
Image.
like there were jump scares in The Walking Dead.
Yes, there were jump scares in The Walking Dead.
And you don't enjoy those.
I didn't enjoy those. But then also at the same time, I didn't enjoy it because of some of the acting in that show is very bad.
That's separate from what we're talking about.
Like, it's weird. I watched most of the Resident Evil films. I don't know why.
See, that for me makes sense to you because that's like more action.
But that's I think in line with like World War Z. Like it was part action film. It was part one of my other favorite genres of film, like natural disaster or like global disaster movies.
What about all of the Night of the Living Deads?
I think I saw the very first, like the original.
The original one.
And then I tried to watch the Dawn of the Dead remake by Zack Snyder. I was going through a phase where I was like really into Zack Snyder, and I was like, I should go back and, I mean, I'm still in that phase. I should go back and watch Dawn of the Dead because I knew he directed that. But like the opening sequence with the little girl, there's that shot where you see her in the hallway and you just see her silhouette. I remember going, nope, and immediately turned it off.
Interesting. There's another whole sect of what I would consider horror movies that I think you and have watched very readily and happily that I don't understand why. Movies like I Saw the Devil, movies like Old Boy, movies
Thrillers.
like Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Yes, I would put Seven in that category.
Yeah, they're great. What
Thrillers.
about them?
They're horror is what I'm
saying.
saying.
Yeah. Well, they're horrific. I don't know if I would say they're horror.
So, like, side question, tangent, like, what about true crime?
There's a lot of true crime I don't really like. Because that's again like a situation that has happened and could happen again. No, thank you.
But you think 28 Days Later might happen?
What about like Silence of the Lambs?
Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, because I think I saw it enough times on television, like in sections, that by the time I actually sat through the whole film, I was kind of fine with it. But Buffalo Bill is creepy as fuck, and that terrified me and scared me, I think.
You bring up an interesting point there, is that you said that you saw Silence of the Lambs enough that it made it okay. Do you think that you could build up a tolerance to, like, if you if you decided that you wanted to be someone that could watch horror movies without all of this prep work around it, you don't think that you could build up a tolerance to it by, say, engaging in a course study of watching horror movies from
I would
beginning
like
to
to
end?
think I could, but if I'm being honest with myself, no.
It is a little baffling, like, because I understand not wanting to watch horror movies. If you know, even with the quirks of, like, what movies you can and can't watch, like, I understand if you just don't want to watch them. What I don't quite get is the reading and knowing everything that happens in it.
I think that's
without actually watching
that's
it.
the thing
But
for
also
me as well.
with watching some scenes.
That's the thing, because I am very respectful if people don't watch horror movies or can't watch horror movies. I get it. There are things that I watch that I'm like, this is insane and no one should watch this. And I'm very, very respectful of that. But yeah, agreeing with Robin here, it totally baffles me that you don't watch it, but you kind of do.
And I do understand the, like, wanting to be up on what's happening and you know, in the zeitgeist and whatever, but I feel like you go to a depth and an extent with it that, like, you might as well just watch it.
Well, sure. I think also a big part of it is I befriend and or marry people who like the genre. To Tuyet's point she made earlier about how she, like, for years didn't necessarily know that I didn't like horror movies. Yeah. Like, you know, I want to be, I don't want,
I'm sorry,
I'm a
the
good
entirety
friend.
of our friendship until 6 months ago.
I'm a great friend and will do the research so that way they can have a conversation with me about horror movies. But they don't need to know that I don't
And you're
watch
happy
them.
to have those conversations. Those conversations won't scare you?
No. Because I think often when you're having any type of, like, real, like, nerdy movie conversation, you are such a dork that
Are you talking about me specifically?
No, I'm saying anybody who has, like,
wow,
you know,
rude.
when they're sitting around with their friends and they're really dissecting a film, you're just so removed from the film because you're really dissecting it and taking it apart that I think that doesn't trigger me or scare me in any way.
Do you think that there's some influence because there's so many people around you, let's say 2 out of 3 people in this conversation right now that are into horror movies, and because we talk about it and because we go see these movies, and, you know, so many of your other friends, such as your friend Jonah Baez also, that pushes you to force yourself to read these Wikipedia entries? Not like you're forcing yourself to read them, but, like, if you think you had a different set of friends.
Yeah, would you do it?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean,
If
do
we
you think that
weren't
there's
married,
some... Yeah, do you think there's some sort of, like, maybe internal peer
Hold
pressure?
on, let me just really quick live in this paradise in my mind really quick of just no horror in my life. Hold on one second. Oh God, it's so beautiful. No, I probably wouldn't.
But that's like, if we weren't married, I wouldn't watch any of the Marvel movies, and I've seen them all. So.
And you're welcome.
Because I will say that is kind of sweet and kind of endearing that you are putting yourself through Wikipedia summaries of horror movies because you love us.
I do. And again, I respect the genre. I respect what it does. But, like, no, thank you. No, I was going to say, going back to Halloween, another reason that I also don't like Halloween is because that is a big
God, you got to stop saying that.
market.
It just, like, hurts my ears.
That is a big market. I'm probably going to lose so many friends after this. That is a big market for horror films. So, like, you can't watch any TV. You can't go to any movie without watching a horror trailer. And, like, I straight up do try not to look at the screen when horror trailers are on.
So you don't watch horror trailers, but you watch recaps of horror movies.
Yeah.
that are
because
basically
usually
trailers.
If other people start talking about it first.
Yeah, there's people who talk about it. They like break it down. They like play and stop. And
it's not like a trailer that's like designed to scare you.
Yeah, and I'll say this about every genre fan, every person who is on YouTube, all the YouTubers who dissect and do like play-by-plays of any type of genre. But specifically the people who do horror recaps are just like the goofiest, most lovable people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
I would say I'm a fan of people who are fans of something.
So that's like another joy that you get out of those videos.
Yeah, like these I do like nerds talking about the things that they're nerdy about.
I can agree with that. I also enjoy that, and I also like that about the horror community. I found that also, Shane, that a lot of the podcasters, a lot of the YouTubers, a lot of the like everyone on Twitter and Instagram, all the people we follow are incredibly goofy and incredibly fun and so supportive and so kind. Everyone who has listened to this podcast has been so kind, and we've gotten great feedback, and I love that. But I think goofy is a really great word, and I think it's really great because it's such a contrast to the content.
All the other genres of films that I love, there's not really that type of community around.
I wonder because it's been
minus like the Marvel.
Yeah, wait, are you not in a like Sweet Home Alabama like Facebook group?
Yeah, well,
like Sweet Home Alabama, horror movies are perennially sort of underappreciated or not given the sort of critical acclaim of a lot of other genres. So I think a lot of people in horror and horror fans have like worked really hard to champion these movies. And express their fandom when, critics won't.
So by your logic, you would agree that Sweet Home Alabama should win every award in cinema history. I just want this on the record. We can go back. We can play the tape.
If it means that we don't have to watch it again, then yes.
I can't believe how many times Sweet Home Alabama has come up on this episode.
I
am not surprised in the least.
But the horror fan community is a very loving community, and I do like I like the people. I just don't like what they watch.
That you're such a poser because you hate Halloween.
I hate the holiday. It's just so scary. It doesn't have
Would you
to
take
be.
Our future children trick-or-treating? Oh, the hesitation.
Why?
Listen,
why would you take that joy
away
from a child?
It's not so much that. I just think by the time we have kids, I don't think trick-or-treating is going to exist.
Should we give Shane some badges for enduring this conversation with us? Even though I don't know.
Did I answer everything?
No, I mean you answered everything, but it didn't get us any clearer, any closer to an explanation.
I think I think that this conversation has just made me crazier. Because now there are all these other facets that I didn't know about, like this Halloween thing is very weird to me. And not that you don't enjoy it, but that you hate it and that you're angry about it. That there's something inside of you that is mad at like small plastic like orange pumpkins and little ghost figurines and like those like pop-up things that people put in their yard. It's like a ghost that's floating in the tree. Like that's like that upsets you?
Yeah, I want to just not know. Those are fine. I think it's just the larger scaring market around Halloween.
I think you're hanging out with the wrong people on Halloween. It's a joyous.
Well, I've spent the last 7 Halloweens with you, Robin, so what does that say?
And we've done literally nothing.
That's true.
All right. What do we got for badges?
Well, I kind of knew that we weren't going to come to a conclusion about Shane's taste. There are still, I don't know that we ever will. The movies he can and can't watch change every day. It's willy-nilly.
Well, no, the movies I can watch are pretty consistent. It's Sweet Home Alabama every single day.
Right. So my first badge for Shane is the Shapeshifter badge, because I can never figure out what horror movies you can and can't watch. So you surprise me in both directions pretty consistently.
I would like to give Shane the Catch Me If You Can badge for just fucking lying to me for
That's a good movie.
the entirety of our friendship.
That's a movie
I can't believe that the whole time I just assumed you liked horror movies because we would talk about it or it would come up and you never said anything. And I just went along with your like tidbits and your knowledge and your fucking trivia about it.
And now you wanted a peek behind the curtain. You have to live in this world now. I hope you're happy, Tuyet.
Actually, what has been great is that this blossoming, growing friendship with Robin has been really incredible.
Yes,
and
finally.
Yeah, it's been.
I have someone to talk to about horror movies and celebrate them.
And it's been so great to meet someone that has very parallel, similar taste in horror movies. But then I like that you also like things that I like, ghost stories. Like, I know how much you love ghost stories, and like I like ghost stories, but they really scare me. So I don't watch that many ghost stories. So I love exploring that. But that has been a great,
very compatible
taste that are also complementary. So thanks, Shane.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, as your wife, I would like to award you the Cutie Pie badge, because even though we don't enjoy the same movies, you're still a really big cutie pie.
That's right.
That's really nice.
I'm a cutie pie who likes cutie pie film.
As infuriating as it is, your fucking face is really adorable.
Shane, do you have any badges for us or for yourself?
Yeah, I would like to award myself the best friend badge because I've been such a good friend to all of you guys. No, here we go. I'll give you guys the nerd badge because you guys are nerds about horror films, and it's a pleasure to listen to nerds talk about nerdy shit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
There's no two bigger dorks in this world. Let me take that back. No two bigger dorks on this Zoom call than the two that I'm looking at right now. This podcast has definitely made me have to do another round of investigating and looking into things. And that has been a little step towards me continuing to not watch horror movies.
I would like to throw this out to the listeners. Do you have someone in your life that doesn't watch horror movies? Does it baffle you? Does it make sense? Do they have good reasons for it? Like, I want to hear. I want to know. Are you married to someone? Do you have a Shane in your life?
If you do, give them a hug. You know?
And also
tell them it's going to be okay.
Email us at bunk237@gmail.com and just dish. Spill it all.
Please.
Vent.
Please.
We're here for you.
We are here in your support group.
And if your Shane wants a Shane to be its friend, I'm available.
Keep in mind, for all applicants for Shane's friend, that you will have to watch Sweet Home Alabama and talk about it on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh,
it
sorry.
only took
Wait.
6 episodes.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming
this
on.
podcast. I hope that you enjoy also editing it.
Bunk 237, a horror movie podcast, stars Tuyet and Robin Zlotnick as the final girls of Bunk 237, and Chris Charpentier as camp director Chris. The show is produced by me, Shane Segreti. Our theme song is written and performed by Dan Zlotnick, and our outro music is written and performed by Talene Kali. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and it may be featured on an upcoming episode. Have a suggestion for a movie? And follow us on Instagram at Bunk237Pod and Twitter at Bunk237. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded.